They're all circling the wagons, where you even have the leadership of the Republican Party don't want Donald Trump to get on in because they're looking at jail time if they can't force Hillary Clinton into that White House.
Every gold investor should consider top quality assets partnered with the best in the business, a real portfolio to profit. Gold year to date is up 22%. However, a portfolio that is positioned correctly should be up 155% this year. To learn more about how you can begin to enjoy the bull market in gold, visit crushthestreet.com/fortune.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm joined today with the very popular Michael Rivero of whatreallyhappened.com and, of course, his popular radio show, What Really Happened. And he's a show's favorite, Crush the Street favorite, of course. And today, I think we're going to be talking about what really is happening in the election and the markets. But first of all, Michael Rivero, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me again.
Michael, let's talk about the markets and the elections here. I was a little shocked as to why the FBI has actually come out against Clinton lately, believe it or not. It doesn't really seem to be in line with the agenda of the establishment, positioning their candidate to get into office. But in your opinion, what do you suppose forced the FBI's hand to act?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a major faction fight within the FBI and indeed within the entire federal government. When we talk about the establishment, it's not necessarily monolithic, if you will. The reality is that the people at the very top have been bought and paid for, and they're corrupt, and their job is to keep the hierarchy, the organization under them in line. We know that last summer when James Comey literally came on out and said, yes, Hillary Clinton committed felony violations of Title 18, but we've decided we're not going to prosecute. It created quite a schism within the FBI. There apparently have been quite a few high-level resignations. The story is even James Comey's wife was on his case saying, what are you doing? And the rank-and-file FBI are seeing this institution that they have devoted their lives to now being seen as a negative. Those of us who've been studying the situation all along understand that the FBI has not always been the sweet and shining good guys that TV and movies like to tell us. Those of us old enough to remember COINTELPRO, for example. And in my own example, how the FBI ended my career in Hollywood following the murder of White House Deputy Counsel Vincent Foster. But by and large, most Americans have a very positive image of the FBI. It's very crafted. They put a lot of effort into it. J. Edgar Hoover was an absolute manic over the image of the FBI versus the reality. So a lot of people in the FBI are very unhappy, and we're getting more and more indications that there's literally a revolt going on within the government itself, that all of these leaks and all this information coming on out, they're trying to claim it's all Russia, 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 but it does seem to be coming from internal sources. And the exposure of an additional 650,000 emails on Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner's laptop, that was simply too big to ignore, and everybody's trying to get ahead of that. But it really is too big to ignore. And now all of a sudden we're seeing the FBI starting to release very damaging reminders of the Clintons' past. Yesterday they released the information about the pardon of Mark Rich, the investigation into that, the pardon gate, and how James Comey, even all the way back then, was saying, we're not going to go with this. We're just going to let that one slip. Today they released some of their internal files regarding the Vincent Foster affair, including the fact that the FBI did have a witness saying that Vince Foster was murdered, and there was a van with 3 people that were literally dumping the body in Fort Marcy Park. They even got part of a license plate. But of course, the higher up said, no, you're not going to go with that. So we're seeing all this information coming on out, and it does seem to indicate a serious schism opening up within the federal government between those who are part of the Clinton-Bush narcocracy and the rest of the government that realizes that the entire government is going to collapse if this is allowed to continue much longer. So apparently some people, want to have the government continue, want to continue in their government positions, and they're willing to risk loss of career and even loss of life to try and get some of this information out, because we know that people who stand up to the Clintons and Bushes wind up in serious trouble, like Seth Rich, both of the attorneys helping Julian Assange with his extradition case have died under questionable circumstances. There's a lot of wet work going on right now, and I'm sure probably, Anthony Weiner is trying to decide if he prefers to die in a plane crash or by suicide. So everybody's kind of scared, and they're no longer working as a functioning unit. Everybody is now looking out for their own personal well-being, preserving as much of their wealth and reputation as possible, staying out of jail. And I know there's all these celebrities who were saying they were going to leave the country if Donald Trump is elected president. Whoopi Goldberg's going to go to Canada, and all these other celebrities. But I think if Donald Trump succeeds in overcoming the election fraud next week, we're going to see a whole bunch of high-level political figures leave the country heading for places without extradition. Because with Donald Trump as president and Trey Gowdy as the attorney general, charges are going to be filed against a lot of these people. And it's the only thing that would be left is for Obama to pull a Gerald Ford and just issue a blanket pardon to everybody, which is technically not legal, because you're not supposed to be able to apply for a pardon or receive one until after you've been convicted for a crime. But Gerald Ford, in order to shut down any more investigation into Watergate, just issued that blanket pardon, said our national nightmare is over. How wrong he was about that. We might actually see Obama forced to do that as one of his final acts in office.
Wow. Yeah, really things are bursting at the seams with the situation, and it makes a whole lot of sense as to why they cannot control it. Michael, what do you suspect then will be the outcome of all of this investigation? Do you think that Donald Trump will actually win? And, talk about the fraud, and, how much fraud do you think is being injected into the system here? And do you think he'll be able to overcome it? And if this email investigation is only going to help him get there?
Well, certainly the email investigation is shaving away Hillary's points. Even the corporate media that is biasing their polls in favor of Hillary now have Donald Trump out there in the lead. We know that were this an honest election, first of all, Bernie Sanders would be the Democratic nominee, and Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide. But we know that our elections are rigged. Those electronic machines are designed to steal elections. We're getting reports of massive fraud all over the country, both during the Democratic primaries and in the early voting. It is completely out of control. And in an ironic twist, Bernie Sanders supporters filed a class action lawsuit against the Democratic National Committee, and specifically Debbie Wasserman Schultz, demanding a refund on all of the donations they made to the Democratic Party supporting Bernie Sanders. Saying that the Democratic National Committee defrauded them by not maintaining impartiality and fairness during the primaries. And interestingly enough, down in Florida, the Democratic Party's lawyers literally admitted in court, yes, of course we were biasing this to Hillary Clinton. The Bernie Sanders supporters should have known that. Therefore, they don't really have grounds to demand a refund. So they're actually admitting they rigged the primaries for Hillary Clinton as a tactic to evade this class action lawsuit, which could bankrupt the entire Democratic Party at this point. And it really is out of control. Now, the fact of the matter that everybody is now aware of the massive election fraud makes its use that much more difficult to get away with. Now, in the past, normally election fraud comes in when a race is really close to each other, and you just need to shift it a few percentage points. But attempting to reverse a complete landslide is very dangerous, because everybody sees that's exactly what happened. Now, one of the things that's going to be happening next Tuesday on Election Day is all of the people voting for Donald Trump are going to be wearing red. And that's just going to be a visual cue to everybody around what Donald Trump's support really is, which makes it more difficult for the corporate media to come on out and say, well, we don't know how it happened, but Hillary Clinton has swept through to a victory. Donald Trump is already saying he's going to challenge the results on the basis of fraud. Interestingly enough, now that Donald Trump is pulling ahead in the polls, it's the Hillary Clinton campaign that's saying, this election's going to be rigged. The polls are being rigged. Donald Trump is cheating me out of my well-deserved, and the Russians are trying to rig the election by showing the world how we're rigging the election, and therefore it's not fair.
Wow. Yeah, no, I did see that. You know what? I wanted to talk to you about this. I wouldn't be surprised to see some major event take place to derail attention from the scandal in between now and the election. Now we're getting really close to the election.
But they're already trying. They're already trying. They're fanning up that some of the information on Anthony Weiner's laptop is now going to blow more exposure on the Jeff Epstein, Orgy Island, the Lolita Express. It's going to tangle up all these celebrities and politicians with what's been going on down on the island, none of which has any bearing to the future of the United States of America. But this is basically a replay of the stained blue dress. Now, professional propagandists call this a limited hangout, which is where you admit to a lesser crime to conceal a greater crime. And back when Bill Clinton and Hillary were trying to dodge Whitewater, Ken Starr, who was in on this whole narcocracy going back to Ronald Reagan and his Attorney General, William French Smith, just concocted this whole tawdry sex scandal for the media and America to look at, so that we weren't paying attention to the real scandal behind Whitewater, which was CIA-sanctioned gun running and drug smuggling into the United States of America to pay for it all, being sold to our children primarily in the black neighborhoods. That had to be kept from the American people, so they dangled the blue dress and Oval Office sex and everything to distract us. And they're getting ready to do the same thing with the Jeff Epstein Island. It's all over the web, and I'm trying to shout out the warning. Don't fall for it. Don't get distracted by this, because the real meat of the scandal is that there was classified information on that laptop. It shouldn't have been there in the first place. There are so many emails on this laptop, it may well include the 33,000, apparently whom Abedin was trying to keep a file for her own protection. In fact, the directory on the laptop where all this stuff was stored was labeled life insurance, which, if you know about the history of the Clintons, you understand why people close to them take such steps. But they're going to try and throw the sex scandal out there in the next few days and get everybody looking at that. Again, we've seen this all before, and we need to stay focused. Whatever happened on Jeff Epstein's island and on his airplane and all the rest of it, it doesn't affect our lives directly. But Hillary funding and supporting ISIS does, because our kids died in some of these wars. The duplicity that was coming on out, the possibility that Hillary may have actually been selling U.S. secrets to foreign governments, using her weak email server to deliver, and her so-called charitable foundation to collect and launder the money. What we're hearing from an anonymous leak inside the FBI itself is the Clinton Foundation is a giant slush fund, tax avoidance scheme, money laundering, and all of the major players in Washington, D.C. are involved with it, which is why they're all circling the wagons, where you even have the leadership of the Republican Party don't want Donald Trump to get on in, because they're looking at jail time if they can't force Hillary Clinton into that White House. Wow.
Michael, and talking about the distraction, we have all these women coming out against Donald Trump out of nowhere, like a few days before the campaign. And you got to wonder where these people are coming from, considering a billionaire supposedly touched them. I mean, the logic of them not going to their attorney's office the following day to settle for millions of dollars is just beyond me. And for them to come out right before the election is just, again, that was, I think, hopeful, or the Hillary Clinton election campaign's last hope that they would bury him with all these people coming out. But I mean, any thoughts from your end on this?
Well, we know from the Project Veritas videotapes that the Hillary Clinton campaign was literally paying people to go to Donald Trump rallies and commit acts of violence, or get up and make racist statements in order to damage his brand. Obviously, if they're willing to do that, they're willing to pay women to come forward and make these allegations against Donald Trump. One of the women apparently was in serious financial trouble, and all of a sudden her financial troubles have mysteriously vanished. In at least 3 of the cases, the stories have been completely discredited as not possibly being able to happen the way they've been described. But yeah, it's a smear job, it's a hatchet job, and the American people are realizing it. And Hillary is still trying to play the political game with the methods that worked back for Richard Nixon, which is really where she learned most of this stuff. Because remember, her first paid job in Washington, D.C. was on the Watergate committee. Now, she got fired for ethics violations, but before that, she had a close-up look at all of the dirty tricks being used by CREEP, the Committee to Re-elect the President, for Richard Nixon to steal his second term in office. And what's really ironic is we're shaping up here for Nixon version 2.0, because if Hillary is able to steal the election next week, just like Richard Nixon, she's going to go into office with active investigations all around. She's going to be spending half of her time fending off the investigators and defending herself legally. The other half of the time, she's going to be looting the country to pay back all of her Wall Street backers who've given her all this money. And she's going to have no time left over to actually think about what's good for the nation and the American people as a whole, even if she was inclined to do so. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he's got his own money. He can't be bought. He can't be bribed. And he's not under any kind of investigation except for a ginned-up rape case that's already been thrown out of court twice before. And that's, again, part of the smear job. So Donald Trump is going to be focused going into the White House. He's going to be thinking about keeping his agenda, making America great again, bringing back the manufacturing, bringing back the agriculture. We don't need a replay of Nixon's second term in office and an eventual resignation. And that's what we're going to get if Hillary steals the election next week.
And why do you suppose Donald Trump, and this is something that's hanging over his head, why do you suppose he's not releasing his tax returns? Is there a deeper reason other than that what he's been saying, that he's under an audit?
You know, I have to be very honest. I'm not sure about that. And I have to be very honest, I almost don't really care.
Right.
Because if you look at the tax code right now in this country, there are so many Americans under some kind of tax problem one way or the other. And a lot of people don't want that to get on out. But the reason Hillary Clinton went after Donald Trump's tax returns was to counter Donald Trump's suggestion that maybe it was time for the Clinton Foundation to open up their books. Because the reality is outside auditors, including a Wall Street forensic economist, have gone in and looked at the publicly available documents on the Clinton Foundation, and they're seeing vast sums of money go in and very little come out for actual charity. The Clinton Foundation collected billions for relief in Haiti, but we've had the president of the Haitian Senate get on up and say the Clintons did almost nothing down in Haiti. They built a few houses for the news photographers to take pictures of to say, see, we're doing something wonderful. And they actually tried to bribe him to stay silent about the fact that the Clintons were just using Haiti as another fundraising come-on, but the money was really going someplace else. In a lot of ways, what we're seeing in the United States today is a replay of what happened during Prohibition, when those criminals who were willing to traffic in the illicit substances, in this case alcohol, were literally made enough money to buy and bribe their way to the highest levels of the U.S. government. This was basically where the Kennedy clan got so much of their money. Today, of course, it's not alcohol, it's cocaine and heroin. And we know the CIA has been tangled up with drug smuggling going all the way back to Vietnam. And it was actually made legal for them under Reagan by William French Smith, which is where the CIA got its license to smuggle. And everywhere they go, they take over the drug trade, whether it's cocaine from Central America, opium coming in from Afghanistan, and there's a lot of opium coming in from Afghanistan ever since the U.S. reinvaded that place. And you need to remember, prior to the U.S. invasion, the Taliban had all but eradicated opium production inside Afghanistan. And then the U.S. invades, and the poppies are blooming. We have photos of U.S. and coalition troops guarding and protecting the opium poppy fields and actually handling these sacks of raw opium. And the U.S. Is refusing to do anything about the opium trade in Afghanistan, saying, well, these farmers have to do something for money, and this is what it is. Really? What were they doing for a living when the Taliban had banned opium? I'm sure they had some kind of a job. There's a lot of hungry people in Afghanistan. They could be growing food crops. What we have is a narcocracy ruled by drug criminals. And it's hardly unique to the United States. It's hardly original with the United States. Actually several years ago now, the people of Colombia actually put their president on trial for drug crimes. And unfortunately, he was exonerated. But at least the Colombian people had the courage to try.
Michael, and just final question here. What are your thoughts in regards to Trump actually winning in the markets? Do you suppose that the markets are going to see a Brexit-type effect where stocks are going to fall, precious metals are going to rise, as a Trump win would defy popular thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president, and that the markets were potentially pricing that in already?
Well, the problem that we have right now, as you've seen over the last several months, we are seeing all of these major banking concerns being exposed as committing massive amounts of fraud. J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank, all of them. And what that tells me is that the real economy that makes the nation run, people with high-paying jobs, being able to buy homes, able to buy cars, go to the shopping mall and buy new, hopefully U.S.-made appliances, that economy has pretty much already shut down. And Wall Street is surviving on fraud and instantly created money being poured all over them, which is a policy Hillary Clinton is going to continue. Now, if Donald Trump overcomes the election fraud next week, it's going to send a signal that the days of Wall Street surviving on fraud are going to come to an end, and Wall Street better get back to work actually building a working economy for the American people. So there's going to be a little bit of turmoil. You're going to see those institutions that are dependent on fraud to survive are probably going to collapse, but that would be a good thing because they'll make way for new businesses, new financial firms to start up that are going to be making money the old-fashioned way, which is to build up the infrastructure to allow ordinary Americans to trade their labor for decent wages and salaries and start pumping that newly created wealth back into the bottom of the economic pyramid.
And Michael, one more follow-up question. If Trump does become the president, how much hope do you have that he'll actually be able to effectively preside over the country and make these positive changes, repeal Obamacare, reform the tax code, and, actually build the wall and do all these things that he's promising?
Well, it's going to help if we see a tremendous anti-incumbency surge in the congressional races. But as I keep telling my listeners and readers, Trump victory is not the end of our fight because Donald Trump by himself is not going to be able to accomplish anything if he's facing an obstructionist Congress and bureaucracy. So when Trump gets into the White House, the American people are going to have to literally stand outside the offices of our representatives and senators and glare at them through the windows and remind them they're supposed to be working for us, not for Israel, not for Big Pharma, not for the big banks. They're supposed to work for us, or they will be out of a job next election. So we, the American people, are going to have to stand behind Donald Trump every single day that he is in that Oval Office, stand with him, and send out the signal. It isn't just one guy, even though he's the president. There's the president and 300 million Americans all marching in lockstep in the same direction, restoration of the republic.
Well, that's great actionable advice for everyone right there. Michael Rivero, if people want to learn more about what you do, listen to your show, where would they go? And just tell everyone a little bit about what they are likely to get.
Okay, well, the website is whatreallyhappened.com. We're coming up on our 23rd year in existence. And the radio show is on the Republic Broadcasting Network, Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time. And if you go to whatreallyhappened.com during showtime, there's a little player for RBN. There's also a little video adjunct from BAM User. There's a podcast page that you can go to if you're not able to listen during the live broadcasts.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir, for coming on, and you have a great day. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope you have a good day as well.